So I've been working on a book for 15 years, Shadows of Clouds on the Mountains. I've split it into 2 volumes, like Cervantes with Don Quixote, so I can get it out into the world sooner. This is the table of contents of the book, which I only format properly as I get those parts written. If I haven't written a part completely yet, it's in brackets and it has double asterisks next to it. There are only 3 things left on this now, like that. The afterword, which I'm working on now. There's half of 1 chapter, The Endless Winter, or Soldaten in Oral History. Just need to do 7 interviews for it. It's an oral history chapter. The premise of my book is that every chapter has a wildly different form, but together they tell the story of my life. There's 60 chapters, like the 60 chapters of an hour. I like to think like when Shakespeare says that life's but a poor player that struts and frets its hour upon the stage, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, and then is heard no more. Like that. I like to think that this is that hour, for me. It's my hour on earth. By the time I finish book 2, I'll probably have lived 5 decades. Insane. But book 1 I'm going to finish this year. Oh yeah. I have so little left. Half a chapter, an afterword. I know the format of exactly because I just wrote the introduction and they mirror each other. But check this out. Shadows of Clouds on the Mountains, book 1 of 2. That's my title, named from seeing shadows of clouds on the mountains as I drove along Tramway Boulevard in Albuquerque. Later, I searched the phrase online and found it was in a Scottish poem. A line like, shadows of clouds on the mountains, grazing like cattle at rest. Something real nice. Anyway, here I've got chapter 0, epigrams for shadows. Since my work is a maximalist work, this book is probably about 2,000 pages long. Certainly over 1,000. I just counted. It has 7, arguably 8 book-length works as part of its 26, secretly 27 chapters. The book has 27 chapters and book 2 has 33. This one goes from my birth, origins, to my daughter's birth when I was 25. Which is a neat dividing line, I thought, between 2 different modes of life. Mo agrees, I know. But I think Shadows of Clouds on the Mountains are a nice metaphor for the stories of human lives, Like, they're beautiful and worth noticing, but they're gone as soon as they happen. And usually not seen, not watched, barely acknowledged. And I think it's a pretty title. Epigrams for Shadows, the opening chapter is like a secret chapter, chapter 0. But in the style of David Shields' Reality Hunger, a manifesto, and Rob Fitterman's Rob the Plagiarist, and a few other things. It is a work of found writing. It's quotes and pieces of quotes arranged in such a way that it expresses all of the themes and approaches of the book that people are about to read. 60 quotes, 1 per chapter. Not a neat correlation in their subject matter, though. General one. Introduction, which I just wrote. My introduction and my afterword, I think, are really cool. They're a transcription and description of different parts of this accidental audio recording I made of myself when I was not suspecting it, just accidentally. I didn't press the button right or something on my app. So it's kind of a unique opportunity to be like, here's who I really am, I guess, and to show the readers that I'm like a trustworthy guide into like this weirdo figure we're gonna like hang out with for a long time. Ove Knausgaard style, Proust style. So that's the introduction, which is beautifully formatted and looks different from any other chapter. I love it. Youth, that's an interstitial. That's all the interstitials are they're between at the starts of sections. The book has a few different sections. I think the interstitials are a couple thousand words long, and they only take up the right and left side columns on. So they look really different on the paper. Origins. That one is in the form of a prose poem. I guess I'm a published poet. That was published in Booth, a good literary journal, a really reputable one. And then it was republished in their 10th anniversary hardcover best of edition. So that was flattering. I don't know what happened to that one. I think I gave it away. So Origins, and I read that one live once. And Bonnie Arning, a really good poet, was like, "That's awesome." It's like a prose poem, but it's about the Big Bang also and the origins of everything. And it's about looking at home video of a family before you exist and thinking that it existed before you. I benefited as a writer from my dad being an early adopter of video camera technology because the prose poem takes the form of descriptions of home movies from my family. It's a meditation on cosmology too. 101 Jokes for Epileptic Children is literally a joke book. I read so many joke books while working on that, and it's divided into sections of different kinds of jokes, but it's also a nonfiction account of growing up with a seizure disorder. But Origins is really about my earliest years. 101 Joke, and it even flashes back to before I was part of the family. And 101 and to the Big Bang. 101 Jokes is a joke book, and some of the jokes are really funny. I read that one at a house show one time, and everybody was laughing and clapping. It was like the best applause I ever got. I was opening for a band. Book of Mikey, Another Testament of Mikey. That is a book of scripture, but it also traces all my family's Mormon ancestry, and it's about being called to suddenly live in Austria. And because my parents were religious, but we just did. So it's about this like really Mormon chapter of life, living with all these missionaries in this house, and also about my family's Mormon ancestry woven into it. I was a 6th generation in that stuff. The Cities We Built on Tidal Waves is a unique piece. I recently read that one out loud at a somewhat political event, and it was really well received. I was like, dang, I thought this was a freak one. But it's about hypnagogic and hypnopompic moments, and I try to figure out what I can discover of random ones from different times in my life. Like, what might that have been like? Pure speculation, basically. Informed speculation. And it's nonfiction, aided by journals, etc. It moves around in time in a structured way. Starts where the previous chapter ended and ends where the next chapter begins. And it's about, waking up and falling asleep, and uses that metaphorically also to look at how we do that culturally over and over again. Like when everyone collectively believed we'd reach the end of history. And it's about the disposable nature of things, and it's kind of an odd one, but I think it makes the youth section a little more interesting. And Childhood Revised and Updated, that one is, I first started keeping a journal at 11. Well, I had one before that, but I lost that. And so for my 5th grade year, after we left Austria and moved to Colorado and kind of lived out in the woods, I took these journals and then I kind of rewrote them in my voice as if I was like a literary figure and had all this access and knowledge from the future, and I kind of go meta with that. And I think it's really cool. It's only like 2,000 words long, and I've never been able to get it published anywhere. You cowards. What are you, out of ink? Yeah, Sweet Pea. Stand up. Stand up. Raise a paw against this injustice. But, so that's the youth section. Next is growth. Again, there's a little interstitial opening there. And use those interstitials in like a friendly way to like encourage readers through this giant maximalist work. Explain little things, prepare them for what's coming. Like, you're doing good. I Was a Teenage Mormon is an almost 250-page graphic memoir that I put together with photos and clip art and graphic design. It's in 4 issues. Holy of the Fall takes the form it takes the idea of Annie Dillard's Holy the Firm about every day being a god, and it looks at 3 days from my last summer at home as if they were gods. Dear People Who Want Me Gone takes the form of a 200-page appeal to a college board to not kick me out of college. It's kind of facetious and self-aware, and so it's like, obviously this isn't a real letter. But here I go. What's cool about these 3 chapters is the first one ends with a high-speed chase type incident that changed my whole life back in the day. The second one has that in the middle, and the third one begins with it. So cool. North is the next section. This is where I go to Alaska, into the wild or wherever, I don't know. That takes the form of a lost chapter of the book Into the Wild. It's like laid out exactly like it with the photo and quotes at the beginning and stuff. But I kind of joke with it, and I have the quote attributions be really, really long, like paragraphs. And then I've got chapter 10, The Endless Winter, or Soldotna and Oral History. That's my one unfinished chapter of book 1, and I do want to mess with the comic book a little bit more. There's like 4 pages that just have too much text on them. They bug me. Let's see. But I need to do 7 more interviews to finish that chapter, The Endless Winter, or Soldotna and Oral History. I got 4 chapters here about being in Alaska. World Greening Wildly is about the spring, and it's a unique form that I created that starts with an 11-word sentence, and then it goes to a 22-word one, or paragraph, and then 44, and so on. And doubles and doubles and doubles until it gets to the big middle, which is half camping in the woods and half being on the road, traveling. About a time when I was living in the woods and about a time when I was hitchhiking around with a hippie girlfriend. And The World Greening Wildly, that was a cool one to write. I only have beginnings in that. I don't have middles and ends, really. I think that was a guiding thing, writing that. Just beginnings and middles. What was it? That one got published in a journal from Michigan called, like, a zip code, 3288 or something. I'm like wary of all numbers now from the internet every time I say one. And then Pentagram is a unique work that I wrote all the sections and subsections of it. Their word counts correspond to the angles of a pentagram. So it's in 5 sections that are in 3 sections each. Yeah. And they each have 2 sections that are more than the other. Vice versa. But Pentagram's a cool one. That one's never gotten published either. But that's about hitchhiking down from Alaska and all across Canada up to Inuvik as a young freak. That's like an adventurous chapter. Book 1 of this book is really interesting because it travels all around. It's just me on my own, lots of the world, big contexts, everything from the Berlin Wall to America. But then, you know, the second volume is entirely in Albuquerque. It doesn't travel at all. I mean, very little. At most, New Mexico. Okay, next section, West. All right, How to Build a Playground. That one was published in the Concho River Review. All of these I've tweaked with further. A good literary journal with an author, editor. He gave me his book. I keep meaning to read it. And this one is written in the form of playground instructions, but I really enjoyed how loosely I use that. It's literally, here are the playground instructions, 1, 2, 3. I kind of enjoyed it. But when I wrote that one, How to Build a Playground, I studied short stories because I was like, I want to write an essay that reads like a short story. So I think that one's really great. It's about traveling around the West with these 3 dysfunctional brothers, building playgrounds. I might make a movie out of that one someday. It'd be a good indie film. Crazy time. Some lines back to someone. Someone gave me a letter that was significant in my life, like 20 years, 20 plus years before this essay was written. And I wrote a letter back, and then I wrote a big section typed up for context between the 2 letters, kind of making a compelling exchange. I didn't send the letter back, but that's kind of it's kind of an important minor chapter, I think. The Silence Under a Rain-Down Bridge, that one is a book-length guidebook to the shoreline of Lake Powell, which I canoed around in 1999 and 2000. Conference of it over 7 months. I was like a weird adventurer, and a lot of these stories are about like trying to find myself through adventure. On a Lake of Dreams, during that exact same time, I wrote down all my dreams, and so I tell that whole previous chapter again, but through my dreams at night and what I was experiencing and their context, possible meaning, etc. A Sense of an Unnamed Hill, that one is a visually formatted chapter with some images where, how much to explain each one of these. Kind of looks like hills on the page. And it gets, it's experimental. I think I write in long sentences. The sentences get longer and longer. It's all in sentence fragments. That's what A Sense of an Unnamed Hill is. I'm training for this hike across the country that's coming up in the story. And going up and down this hill, so it starts off monosyllabic, and as I get better at hiking, it gets a little more talkative. All like kind of creatively, artistically told, but nonfiction. And that's West, back in New Mexico, and the Four Corners states, the Intermountain West. And East, some thoughts on Boston. When I wrote that, I thought, wow, this is going to be the longest chapter in the book. It's like 120 pages long. Ha ha ha. It is now one of 7, or arguably 8, if you include the poetry chapbook, book-length works hidden inside this one book. But some thoughts on Boston is cool. It's all written while trying to imagine what the reader might be experiencing. And it's a meditation also on what readers experience and how nonfiction is essentially impossible because nobody imagines exactly what somebody wrote down. They all picture it their own way. So 2 people picture it the same.